Hello and welcome, Missouri Aquarium Society family, to tonight's Know Your Speaker interview. I cannot wait to introduce you guys to our guest tonight. His name is Kurt Zahringer. He's a great friend of mine, and he taught me pretty much how to collect wild fish. And I am super grateful for him for that. It really opens your eyes to the kind of adventure that is in every single like pond, stream, and sometimes even puddles. But before I introduce him, have a quick announcement. We have a members only parking lot swap. So that is the bring a bag, take a bag fish swap. And what you're going to do is you're going to bring a bag of fish, at least 2 fish. I believe you can find the rules on our website. That should be in the description below. And for every bag that you bring, you get a lottery ticket. And not a lottery ticket, a raffle ticket. Uh, and so anytime that your number gets called in the raffle, you get to go up and choose from all the bags that everyone has brought. And so you end up finding some really, really cool stuff because some of our members are breeding some very cool fish. I've got some fun stuff that I can't wait to bring as well. So that is going to be at Jerry Joe's place. Again, the information you can find on the website. The link is in the description below. So without any further ado, I introduce to you my good friend, Kurt. Kurt, welcome in, man.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, man. I am so glad that you are here. So, Kurt, you are talking to us next week about collecting wild fish, yeah?
Yes, indeed.
So, how did you get started in that?
Um, I've been keeping aquariums for most of my life since I was hanging out my first aquarium when I was like 6 or so.
Wow.
And for many, many years, I was very disinterested in native fish. And I remember hearing that there were some people who were in native fish. And, when I was like high school or so, and when I was still very into aquariums, when I heard that, I was like, native fish, it's little brown and gray fish. Who wants that? And
Yeah.
I think I first started getting into it when I was at the university in there in Columbia, and I took ichthyology, and the class was a shared curriculum by both the biology department and the fisheries and wildlife department, and
Hmm.
so as such, they did a lot of their work with local fish. And at first, I was kind of like, eh, but I enjoyed the class, and we went out seining and electroshocking in some local rivers in the class, and it was good fun times,
Yeah.
and we use the Flieger's Fishes of Missouri book as a one of our textbooks in the class.
Yeah.
And as I was like flipping through the book, I was like, oh wow, there's like some cool fish in here that I'd never seen before. And you know, like by the end of the year, some of the other classmates, like we were like the front row nerds. I think we went out collecting fish on our own in some of the other some of the streams we'd been to, and some of the other ones in the area. And so that's kind of where it got started. So thank you, Professor Nolte there at MU. I think some people in the club may actually know him. He was the ichthyology professor. He's a cool guy.
So, Kurt, I also happen to know that you are a fish breeder as well.
Yes.
So when did you kind of get, because in my mind, there's kind of like two, it's very similar hobbies, but they're kind of two different hobbies. It's like fish keeping, fish breeding, and then fish collecting. So how did you kind of get started in the fish breeding side?
Um,
I guess maybe what better question would be like, what was the first fish that you remember like breeding?
just not counting just like guppies that had like incidental breedings when I was a little kid. Um, the first fish that I bred was an epistogramma cockatoides,
Oh,
and
cool.
I remember again, while I was in around this same time,
Hmm.
I had tanks for many many years, but I always was into show tanks. I'd have one or two that would just make pretty, and around the same time I started getting interested in breeding fish, and at first I was like way overthinking it, and I
Yeah, been there.
um, I remember talking to the local guy at my pet store about breeding some of these like crazy oddball fish. Where it's like, well,
Mhm.
like I found in this book that like this knife fish and someone did breed it once, like 20 years ago, and so like that's the first thing I was thinking of was like shooting way too high. And honestly, these fish that probably nobody would have wanted anyway if I bred them. And I, but anyway, then in around this, a couple years later, I actually found Maasai, and it was thanks to our own the eminent Mike Helwig, and I
Yes.
read some of his articles in um, I think that was just Aquarium Fish magazine.
Yes. It's
Now
tough
there's
to keep track of where you saw Mike's articles. Apparently, he's published over 350.
yeah,
So,
I would not be surprised, and I would need to look again because there are a couple magazines and one of them is defunct now. But I think it was Aquarium Fish magazine, and
mhm.
read his about me, and I was like, oh man, this guy's in St. Louis, and I emailed him, and he invited me to Maasai, and I finally made it when I was it was my senior year in college, and then as I say, the rest is history, and I actually started meeting some of these other members and going to the auctions and seeing like, oh, okay, it's like it's a lot easier than I was thinking. It's also like it's not such like a big deal as I originally had in my mind. You just
Mm.
not necessarily easier, but also simpler.
Sure.
And so I bought the Epistos, and I also got a few live bears. I got the Limia vitata and the
Mhm.
orange fin half-beak, the Nomoramphus ebrardii that was also going around the club at the time. And
Mm.
so those three were the first three that I bred, and they just kind of went from there.
Yeah, I remember when I'm actually pretty new to breeding. I'd say I've been doing this for like 2.5 years, but
Mhm.
2.5 years of like really intentionally breeding. I've been a fish keeper for a long time, but I really didn't know that people like that there were just people who kept an entire room in their basement full of fish tanks
Mhm.
just to breed fish. Like, who does that?
Mhm.
I do that now. But yeah, and I remember when I first started that what you were saying about overthinking, totally true. Because I was thinking like, all right, well, I got to hit this exact pH, and like, how am I supposed to control the softness of my water to like the perfect degree? I'm gonna have to figure out how to use an RO unit and do all this stuff, and like, oh my gosh, it's so
Mhm.
stressful, and like, kind of paralysis by analysis.
Mhm.
And I think it was Gary Lang who's like, breeding fish is easy, keeping water is the tricky part. And once you learn how to keep decent water, the fish just do the rest for you. I'm like, oh, I can keep water. And yeah, it made a huge difference in kind of shifted my mind on like how I approached it. And all you really need is just a keep a single species tank. It makes it like a million times easier.
Mhm.
And my problem was when I was like, all right, well, I can only keep one species per tank in order to like have my best chances of breeding. I'm gonna need a lot more tanks.
Mhm.
So yeah.
And thus begins the slippery slope.
Oh my, it's so slippery. Hey, if any of you guys who are watching have questions for Kurt, feel free to ask them in the chat, and I'm going to post them up as we go, and I will pose them to Kurt. Kurt, you've recently moved to Florida.
Yes.
Now, in my mind of like American fish collecting, Florida is kind of like Mecca because there's all sorts of not just cool native fish, but
Mhm.
there's like all sorts of invasive species that are pretty much everywhere, and you're basically encouraged to get them the heck out of the ecosystem.
Mhm.
So like some people just go spearfishing for plecos, just like farming them and getting them out because some of the fish are really harmful to the ecosystem. Like,
Yep,
why don't
that's
you
true.
tell us about some of the damage the plecos are doing down there?
The plecos, and it's like the not like the bristlenose, like the big hypostomus. If or that name may not be current, but you know what I mean. The big hypostomus ones, the ones that they sell like at Petco for $2, and everybody has.
Right.
They think they're algae eaters. Um,
Yes, they're not.
they're so um, some fish are invasive by like outcompeting the other species, or eating other species' eggs, etc. The plecos are the biggest problem because they're causing erosion because they, their natural breeding behavior, they burrow into the bank of the river and make kind of a cave, a tube. And I think where they come from, the ground's a lot more clay. And um, here in Florida, just kind of glorify it. The ground is basically just dirty sand, just dirty sand, and so it collapses a lot more easily because
Hmm.
it just doesn't have as much
Doesn't have that
strength.
integrity.
Yeah, and so these players are constantly pushing the bank is collapsing because they're burrowing into the side of it. Um, and the problem is not many things eat them. Like the alligators will eat them because they'll eat anything. But that's about it. Like because
I mean, they got great natural defenses.
they're kind of tough and spiky, and um, I some of the birds may eat like the little bitty ones, but um, they're for the most part indestructible.
Well, and
Uh,
how quick do the those common plecos grow? I think they grow fairly
they
quickly.
get pretty big, and there aren't like where I am. I have not seen too many. I'm still kind of like right on the line for where it gets too cold for most invasive species. Like it is like we've had 3 frosty nights since I moved here in December and January. It got down to like 31 a couple times. So
Brutal.
um, you have to go a little bit south before you start seeing all the invasive species. I have seen a couple here. I've seen a few tilapia, and I have seen a few plecos because they're a little more cold hardy, and I have seen a couple of hoplocats. The hoplocats are in the river. The hoplocats, though, don't. I don't think they're really causing much of a problem per se. Not
Hmm.
nearly as much as the plecos are, though.
Hmm. Man,
Then if you go down south, like to Tampa, then you can find like you know almost every big cichlid you can think of, and snakeheads and
so
everything.
like that kind of makes me want to ask, like, where in Florida are you? If like you kind of got the
Yes,
Panhandle and then the
I'm in Crescent City, which is it's almost the exact center of the state. It's a little bit northeast of the center. Um,
okay.
I think the precise geographic center is just maybe about 30 or 40 minutes southwest of me, but
No,
yeah,
you're kind of like landlocked, but at the same time, there's nothing. Florida, the whole state is kind of a swamp, isn't it? There's just bodies of water
yeah,
everywhere.
I mean it's yeah, most definitely. And I'm about 45 to 50 minutes from the beach, which is um I'm not that far as the crow flies, but there's lakes and rivers everywhere. So to get anywhere, you have to go like this.
Sure.
Um, but yeah, there's hundreds and hundreds of lakes everywhere, and I'm not too far from the St. Johns River, which is the big the big river in Florida.
Okay, so where all have you been collecting so far in Florida?
I met up with Ken Normandin. Some of you may know him, like when I first moved here,
Hmm.
and he's one of the just the authorities on Floridian native fishes. I'm sure some of you have met him. I went out with him around Jacksonville when I first moved here, and then I've been just like in my own neighborhood. There's a really nice little lake right near my house, and caught a lot of the classic ones like bluefin killies and Florida flagfish and um, Fundulus chrysotis and Heterandria formosa. Those four are like
Yeah.
almost everywhere. Um, and let's see, I've been
Now, do you? When I went collecting with you, you really enjoy kind of targeting the killies. Is that just a thing that you enjoy?
yeah. I mean, Achilles are probably my favorite group of fish, or at least of the ones we have here in the U.S.
Mhm.
There's so many of them. They're very like collectible. Um, and I love like live bears and other cichlids, but there aren't really there's only you could like count the live bears on your fingers, and all the cichlids are invasive. There are some really beautiful cyprinids, both back in Missouri and here that I love.
Mhm.
But the a good thing about killies is like for the most part they all breed pretty similarly. So if you and especially here in the U.S. we don't have any annuals or anything, so all of
Right.
it, you can breed one, you can breed them all.
Yeah.
Um, I've also been down to. I just went the other day to near Ocala. There's a lot of prairies in the Ocala area, and
Okay. Got
found.
some friends near Ocala.
Oh yeah, yeah, it seems. And we found the pygmy killifish, with Leptoleucania omata,
Is that the
and
least killy or is that different fish?
the least killy. Here I'm gonna like get on my soapbox here.
Yeah, go ahead.
The one that goes by least killy is not a killifish. That's the Heterandria formosa.
Yeah.
And I prefer another common name is the midget live bear, and I prefer to use that one because it's a live bear.
Less and it's less deceptive.
Yeah, and I don't know where that came from, but it's yeah, they call it the least killifish, but it's not. And especially because you have the least killifish, and then you also have the pygmy killifish, which is in my mind should be more deserving of the moniker least killifish because it's the smallest killifish in the U.S. I think.
What was the Latin name for the pygmy killifish?
Leptoleucania omata.
Okay, I think I got a picture of it here. I'm gonna
Yeah.
share real quick.
If anyone
Let's
remembers, I think our own. Yep, there
That's
they
it.
are. Yep. Yeah,
Nice.
like little gold guys, and they're only like maybe not even an inch long. Really beautiful guys. If anyone remembers, our own Tony McMillan bred those and got the new species bonus for him shortly before he passed away, as I recall.
Okay. People are starting to file in here in the chat. What's up, Biz? How you been, man? Good to see you in here. Kaler Aquatics has been chatting us up, talking about his hop lows and saying hey to people. Paul Sotero is in here. Good to see you. Julia, welcome. Let's see, Dragon Lair. Always good to see you, man. And yeah, everyone's just kind of getting all in, greeting each other. So killies are kind of a specialty for you, you'd say. And then you have kind of you when we you took me out, and that was actually if you guys want to go see the adventure that I keep talking about with Kurt that Kurt took me on. Is the first YouTube video that I ever posted for the Missouri Aquarium Society. So if you guys want to go back to our videos after this and kind of see the kind of day that we had, it's a really crappily done video, but I had a lot of fun on the day. So if you guys want to go back and kind of take a look at that, you can kind of see some of the really, really cool fish that we found. Honestly, how far was that from St. Louis, Kurt? Like less than an hour, wasn't it?
About. I'm
Yeah, it
sorry
was.
because I didn't come from St. Louis.
Oh, yeah, that's
It
right. You came
was.
from Columbia. It's probably like an hour, like not even an hour from St. Louis, and there's just
Yeah,
amazing
yeah,
fish.
yeah. It was near Washington, I think, from that direction, right? As I recall. Yeah, it was. It was on the Big River,
Yeah.
which yeah, it was. I think that sounds about right. It was about maybe 2.5 hours for me. That's where we had gone on when the NANFA convention was in Missouri back in 2016 or 17, somewhere in there. That's
Hmm.
where we went, and it was a really nice river, and so that's one place that I wanted to go back before I moved. So,
Yeah.
oh, as much as I love Florida, the Ozarks will always have a special place in my heart.
Hmm. Yeah, my I'm gonna be spending some time down there this summer, and I'm really excited to go fish collecting down there.
Awesome.
Um, and when we were going out, you kind of showed me how to see how to spot the killies from the top of the water. What's really fun about collecting killies is that they're pretty easily once you are at it for a few hours, you kind of really learn. Killies have a very unique style of swimming. It's
Mhm.
kind of this little serpentine snake style, and they have a very steady rhythm. Whereas like cyprinid will kind of like they kind of like they flutter and float, and then they keep going. Whereas the killifish are just kind of like a little wind-up toy, and they just are
Yeah,
constantly.
yeah, it's right.
And there were two kinds of killifish that we were chasing that day. There was the I want to say ocellatus. Is that the right one? I'm
I think
totally
the two
bungling
we
that.
found was it was
Is this
Fundulus Olivaceus and
olivaceous? That's what it was.
Catnatus.
Yes, yes. And my favorite was the catnatus. I like the northern
Oh yeah.
studfish. They were a very intelligent fish, incredibly powerful swimmers,
Mhm.
and they were difficult to catch. The only way I think we caught any that day was they made one mistake and they swam into a place that had no escape, and we
Yeah.
just dragged the seine through that little outlet, and I think we caught like 4 or 5 of them in that one haul, and that was really cool.
Yeah.
Uh, but
One
the
catch.
the olivaceous were dumb as bricks, though. Whereas that northern studfish was smart, really intelligent fish,
Yeah,
but the
that's
olivaceous are so stupid.
yeah, and that's definitely like a little reflection of like where they are in the food web. You know, the alligators are definitely they definitely get eaten by birds more.
Yeah,
Um,
I can see why.
and
Yeah, and because they also sat much higher in the water. They sat like right on the top, whereas the studfish sat more like about a foot down.
yeah, yeah.
Julia's got a question for us. She says, "Can clown killifish live with a male betta in a 20 gallon?" Now, clown killies are
Pretty small.
itty bitty,
Yeah,
and they're like kind of burrito shaped. So they're basically like little tiny betta burritos. I'm not sure about that mixture because I mean, it obviously I always tell people we get questions a lot with can a betta live with this? And I tell people all the time is it really just depends on the personality of your betta.
yeah.
Um,
I'd be very hesitant about that just because clown killies are so small. I mean, if you had, and mostly because when you buy them, they're probably going to be juveniles, and when they're juveniles, they're definitely going to be bite size. Like you
yeah.
might keep a totally grown pair with bettas, but
Mhm.
then you'd have to have adult ones in the first place.
Right. Very true. Let's see. Mickey, good to see you, man. Mickey M says, "Hi from Sweden, everyone. Kurt, have you collected fish in other parts of the world than North America?"
Oh yes, I have. That's great. Question. Yeah, I've been collecting in 4 other countries. Yeah, four. Which in order were Nicaragua, Mozambique, Mexico, and Papua New Guinea.
Now, he says, yes, you may send him some of your American killies.
Yeah,
he
we'll talk.
gives you he gives you his blessing.
We'll talk.
So what sort of are you keeping any fish right now? So recently after your move, are you kind of getting things set back up?
Yeah, I brought all my fish with me. Well, I a couple that were not that dear to me. I did give to a couple friends, but most of my fish I brought with me, and I am pleased to say I did not lose a single fish in transport. Um, I did lose a couple
Wow.
in the weeks later, just I think from
Like
acclimation.
water parameter shock type of thing.
Yeah, but I did not lose a single one in the actual transporting. So that
Well
was
done. That
like
is tough to do.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I brought all that. So I have let's see how many tanks do I have at home right now. 4, 5, 6. I have 8 tanks at home, and then about 10 here in my classroom at the school. All the ones in the
You
classroom.
have 10 in your classroom?
Yeah, well, a lot of them are just like my little quarantine tanks. Only a couple of them are the bigger tanks behind you.
That's still crazy. I remember having like one max in any classroom that I was at growing up. That's
Uh,
awesome, man.
and I've got one big tank that I still have not set up yet. I've
What
always
size
been
is
like a
that?
what's that?
What size is the big one?
90, and
Nice.
I've never had like a big tank for. Always my biggest tank has always been a 40, I think,
Okay.
and or no, I did have a 55 once.
Yeah, 55s are.
Yeah, everybody's got 55. Um, but this tank was given to me by my boss like 6 years ago, and he's like, "Here, do you want this 90-gallon tank? We don't want anymore." And I'm like, I don't know where I'm going to put it, but sure. And so this tank's been like in my garage for it's like 6 years. And last year I was like, I'm going to take this tank with me and put it in my classroom. And unfortunately, once I got it here and started filling up, the center brace is cracked, so I need to reinforce the center brace. Been talking with the welding teacher, and he's gonna like help me weld a brace to put on the middle.
That's
We just
intense.
haven't gotten around to that yet.
Yeah, there's always something else to do.
Yep.
Julia, following up with her question about the clown killies and the betta, he says he doesn't eat guppies. I'm not sure how clowns are versus guppies. Guppies are kind of a bigger bodied fish, though. The
Yeah.
biggest thing Julius, I will say, if it fits, it ships. Uh, so if it fits in their mouth, they're probably going to see if it's food or not.
And clown killer, they're probably a lot more nimble than a betta, so
Yes, that is
he may
true.
very well outrun the betta, but then he'll just have a life of like constantly running away from the betta, which
Yeah, well, and he only has to make one mistake.
yeah.
That's the advantage of being the predator versus the prey.
Um,
Let's see. How cool Africa? Yes, very cool. Biz, Fishy Biz, you got to up your game, man. Only 5? Come on now.
but that's great. Though. I think that
It's got
tanks are
5
great
tanks
for
in.
kids.
Yes, yes. I just put a shrimp tank in my wife's classroom,
Oh, cool.
and they're all complaining because we can't see the shrimp. So I'm getting them some more shrimp. I think they got added today, and gonna add some fish in there for them soon.
I
Um,
actually that reminds me. I did have a little funny thing with some kids earlier this year. Like it was the first time I went to. It was actually the second time I went out with Ken Normandin collecting, and this is when I got my. So I set up my first tank in my classroom. This was just like third or fourth week of school, and I had these tanks up with water. And like, oh, we're gonna get fish. We're gonna get fish. When are you gonna get fish, Mr. Z? And I said, I'm as soon as I can. I'm gonna get some fish.
I love this story.
So we're all really really excited, and I so I meet up with Ken Normandin and drive like an hour out into just like the backwoods of Florida. So drive it was called um,
Uh,
Hopkins Prairie,
yeah.
and yeah, it's like an hour away, and I like walk out there with. It was you couldn't drive right up. We had to park and then walk another like 15 or 20 minutes just through like the like chest deep brush, And we finally got there, and we're like, and a lot of these like central Floridian prairies, it's kind of like a marsh, It's like if you see it from a distance, you can't even see the water.
Yeah.
It's just like really thick grass, and then you get there and like part the grass, and there's like that much water in the bottom. And so it's kind of strenuous collecting. You're kind of like digging through the grass,
Yeah,
trying to find
absolutely.
and so I mean, by the end of the day, like my core muscles were pretty sore. And but anyway, I actually found some of the fish we were looking for, and I so then drive him back and like put him in a quarantine tank for a week, and then bring him to school, add him in the school on Monday, and I say, hey everybody, I just want I like put on my announcements on the board for the day. It's like finally got fish, so got our first classroom tank, so everybody can go look at them, and they all file back there. And this one girl looks at him, she's like, Mr. Z, these fish are ugly. Why don't you just go to Petco and buy some pretty fish? And if you've ever seen that meme of Harrelson from Zombieland where he's like, I've never hit a kid before.
Oh, so
And
good, man.
it's like, Mr. Z, I joked like the next day it's like my principal's like, Mr. Z, this student had an A in your class. How did her grade change to an F overnight? I don't know. Must have been a typo. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it's fantastic. Let's see. Mickey says, awesome. Papa and Nicaragua must have been an experience for life. Nice. And are you talking about your experiences, some of your experiences abroad next Thursday?
Yeah. And like a lot of my trips there were like none of them were a big long collecting trip. So like no one of them could fill up a talk. So that's why I'm like focusing on the gear, but I'll like show you how I kind of refined my packing list over the trips and how I used them in the
So it's going to be very practical. Nice. Love
yeah.
that. So Mickey, stay tuned for next week's talk. It's going to be fantastic. Kaler, sorry, nothing is in the 90. It's currently resting in pieces.
Just air.
Yep.
Yeah,
Here's a great question from Julia. Kurt, who do you watch on YouTube? Your favorite fish keeping channels?
oh man, I apologize. I actually don't watch any fish keeping channels on YouTube.
Wrong answer, Kurt.
Sorry.
The Maasai channel. She set that one up for you right on little T-ball. Come on, man.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like in all seriousness, I've been like I've been doing like almost nothing but working and sleeping the past few months with emphasis on the working. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I've gone out like a few times collecting on Saturdays when I can, but yeah, I've like I'm not joking at all. I literally have not watched TV since I moved here.
Ugh, that's brutal.
Yeah.
Julia, talking about clown killies again. So are they like tetras? There's some small. I'd say they're smaller than tetras, wouldn't you? And the
Yeah,
most
I mean,
tetras I can think of.
there are some little tetras, but yeah, they do not get very big. They mostly sit at the
I'm, th-
top.
I'm thinking of like a green neon as far as like a comparable size.
Yeah, yeah, or like an ember tetra maybe, though not
The
a
Ember
little.
tetra's got a bigger body than the
Yeah,
clown killie
yeah,
does.
they're all, clown killers, which you call fusiform body type or torpedo shaped.
Oh, wow.
The they're schooling, but not quite as schooling as like little tetras are. Like honestly though, if you're really interested in clown killies, they're probably one that I would put in a species tank or with other small like for you could do Battis or Darios in with those perhaps, or like Corridorus hebrosus maybe,
Oh,
or any of the little maybe like
pygmy cores would do well.
yeah, Pygmy Cories, or like Chili Rasbora, like Boraris brigate, Chili Rasboras, or some of those little cyprinids. I think um, they're fairly mellow, but yeah, I said like you said they're very bite size.
Yeah. So yeah, and the other thing is, I think at some point all of us have seen a betta fish with some other fish that was previously sharing its aquariums hanging out of its mouth.
Yeah.
Let's
A
see.
moment ago, I was going to say you might try a bigger killifish, but actually, like as a general rule, killifish and anabantoids are not compatible, um, and that's because they actually kind of occupy the same niche in the world.
Hmm.
And if you look with almost no exceptions, killifish and anabantoids do not overlap.
They can't be
Because
found in the same waters, you mean?
yeah, correct, yeah. I think the only place where they overlap is in Sri Lanka, which is kind of like a unique place. But anyway, the
Now, for those at home who may not know, anabantoid is basically, to break it down in layman's terms, it's a fish that can like kind of goes up and gulps air from the surface. So if you'll watch your betta go up and kind of gulp air, or gouramis will go up and gulp air from the surface, that's an
yeah,
anabantoid.
yeah, sorry. Feel free to stop me anytime if
No, you're doing great.
yeah, yeah. Mostly as we know, bettas and gouramis and such. But yeah, like most of them are not going to be compatible with killifish just because they're too similar in their niche. And
I'd never realized that. That's pretty cool.
I did one time just like out of a like in a panic when I had a killifish who was like beating up on his female. I just like took him out of the tank real quick just to save the female. I was like, oh, where can I put him? Where can I put him? And I just threw him in there with some betta rubra that I had. And as soon as he hit the water, you could see, and like the betta was just like infuriated by his presence, and they just started like attacking each other immediately. So that was not
Yikes.
my choice, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's just the body shape and the swimming style is just like too similar.
Yeah. Biz says students are brutal. Yeah, well said, man. Mickey wants to know how many tanks and species in Kurt's home. You answered the tank question earlier. You said
Yeah,
five
I think
or
I've got
six.
no, I've got 8 at home, which is a little. I had 12 before I moved, and I broke a couple down and haven't reset them up. So my goal, I think I'm going to get back up to 12 eventually, and that's probably going to be as many as I can have in that house.
Mm,
And then I apologize. Then
hello.
hopefully have probably 11 in the classroom, so 10 plus the big one when I get it set up, and
Nice.
that should do me. Though also now that I'm here, I also do plan to put some tubs outside and have some fish.
Oh, dude. I literally daydream of living in Florida so I could keep tubs year round.
Mhm.
Oh, that'd be so nice.
Yes, I'll like I say, fairly. There are a few cold nights in the winter, so I'll be limited to the native fish outside or other
Sure.
fish that can tolerate lower temperatures.
Sure.
That's okay,
Or you could like run a heater for a few days of the year, probably if
Yeah.
you were dedicated.
Mhm.
Let's see. Joe Davis wants to know what was your most challenging fish to collect?
Um,
I'm
do you
sure
mean
there's a couple
challenge?
that you like failed, like just gone out and failed, or like maybe kind of like you're saying
Mhm.
the hour trip,
Yeah,
and like just difficult fish to collect.
yeah. Do you mean challenging as in to actually catch it in the habitat, or like the whole journey was the most challenging?
I bet they would like to hear both. Which
Okay.
one? Which one do you want to start with?
Let's see. Well, hmm, there, there were two. So I had the um, again, and this started like back in ichthyology. I wanted to collect every killifish native to Missouri, and there's a few that are like super easy, like those Olivaceus, Notatus, Catnatus, and and then there's Dispar, which is down in the boot heel, which are really common down there. You just have to drive all the way down to the boot heel to find them.
Mhm.
And the other two, and then there is one population of um, Chrysotis down in the boot heel too, which I never did find, but those are super common here. So I've technically caught them here. But anyway, I wanted to find Flindus zebrinus, which is a western species that just barely comes over into Missouri.
Hmm.
And I actually found those when Dave Hemmerline, some of you probably know him, came to Missouri for an AKA convention. And
Yay! And
and
there's another one coming up.
yes, yes, yeah, I'm really hoping it happens. I'll be there for that.
Yeah.
And so I've been out numerous times looking for those in the Salt Creek, which is near my house, but we had to go farther upstream to find it. However, the last one that eluded me for so long, the last killifish was um, Fundulus sciaticus, and that is they call it the plains top minnow, I believe, and it's again it's kind of a more western species. It's a lot more common in like Wyoming, Colorado, Nebraska, and there's just a little bit down here in Missouri. And I looked and looked and looked and looked, numerous times for them, and they in the Fishes of Missouri book they don't publish the precise locations. They just tell you the county and the water body,
Oh,
and
okay.
um, I can't even think of like how many times I went out looking for this, and I like a few times with my friends, and if I could like rope one of my friends into it or like one of my family members, and we looked and looked and looked and looked, and I finally got a tip from a conservation department agent on where a population was in south of Rolla, and I think I'm not going to say the specific location on here. Um, I hope you'll forgive me, but anyway,
No, that's fine.
we went. Even after that, I went looking for it like three times, and we couldn't find it. It's this like way, way out in the middle of nowhere in the Mark Twain National Forest, and it kind of like boggles my mind how anyone ever like found this. It's a spring like out in the Mark Twain National Forest, and I also like want to qualify. It's like especially like it's not endangered or anything, and there I think Mike actually collected them way down in Texas County, which is like near the Arkansas border. So I think they're more common if you go further south. Just I was trying to
Okay.
find one that was not so far south,
Didn't have
and
to drive so far.
yeah, and on the one time before I found a friend of mine, we went canoeing on the Current River and then went looking for them. And we were just over the hill. Like it was just on the other side of the hill. We couldn't find it. And then I went back on my own a few weeks later and finally found it on my own. And once I found it, they were very common and they were there. So that was just more like the logistical um, difficulty of finding it. But that's just like it goes to show you how thorough you have to be in your looking, because you could look all over a habitat and there could be a totally different habitat, totally different species, just over the hill. Um,
Hmm.
the
That's true.
the one that was most challenging, because I never did actually catch them when I was in Nicaragua. We wanted to catch this really unique species that they sometimes call the white eye, which is its scientific name is Oxyzygonectes dovii. Try saying that 3 times fast, and
I couldn't say it 1 times fast.
it's basically an egg-laying four-eyed fish, and it's
Egg-laying four-eyed?
yeah. You know the four-eyed fish, anableps. You've heard of
You
those?
have to explain that one real quick.
Okay. So there's there's a group of very large live bears called anableps, called four-eyed fish, because they sit right at the surface of the water, and each of their eyes actually have
Oh.
2 lenses in it that they look
Yeah,
above.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And they're live bear. I think there's 5 or 6 species of those in Central America, and there's one species that's an egg layer still. So it's kind of like if you've heard of the Gudeids, and there's like that 1 or 2 species of egg-laying Gudeid.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same way. There's like this one species of egg-laying four-eyed fish, and the last time I was in Nicaragua, or no, this is the second trip. I mentioned it to my guide, and he was really savvy on where to find fish, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I know where those are." And we went to this mangrove area on the Pacific side, and they were quite common. But this was the fastest fish I'd ever seen in my life, and these fish were just laughing at me, and I would be standing there knee deep in the water, and there would literally be one like 8 inches from my knees, and it would just be like sitting there looking at me. And as soon as I would like flinch to start moving my net, it'd be 50 feet away. Like, I mean, just saying they were fast like didn't do any justice. And we were there for an hour and tried to catch them. We could never catch one.
Are you
And
serious?
oh yeah, and as soon as I like stood still again, they'd come right back up to me. And then as soon as I moved, they would. And
Did you guys not have a seine?
well, it was just the two of us, and I didn't have the seine.
Bummer.
But I think the only way to catch these would be to just have like an enormous beach with like a whole team of people and just wrap around the whole beach and just like draw it in.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we never could catch them. I think I posted. I got a good photo of one in the water, so maybe I'll try and show that in my presentation. I got a good picture
Yeah,
of
definitely.
the water. Yeah, we never could catch one.
Now that you've hyped it up so much.
And there's very few even photos of that species online. I think it's possibly because they're so difficult to catch, and they also kind of live in a remote part of Central America.
All right, we are coming up on our time limit here. Kurt, you've been on for almost 45 minutes and really doesn't feel the time's kind of flown by. Let's take a few more really quick. Biz wants to know, Fishy Biz, Kurt, fave tank size, natural scape or creative scape?
I'd say my favorite's a 20 long. I love 20 longs. I could have like all 20 longs and I'd be happy. 20 longs all day.
What's that tank behind you?
This is a 30, which is
what's the dimensions on that?
36 inches by.
Oh, so is it a 40-gallon 40 breeder footprint, but shorter?
No, it's I think it's it's basically like a
is it 36 by 18?
Yeah, it's 30 12. So it's the same depth front to back as a 20 long or 20 high.
Yeah, but
36 inches wide.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's not a very common size, and
no, not at all.
Bizarrely, I actually have 2 of them. I have that one that another teacher gave me, and then I have one that was my own that I brought.
Very cool.
Oh, no, I beg your pardon. I'm sorry. I was looking.
Oh, okay.
That's the 30 long. Those are 2 30s.
Okay.
This one is actually a 40 long, which is a 55 that's not as tall. And this tank, if he's watching, I actually bought this from Corey Cook.
Oh,
so this is a Corey Cook tank. So probably several of you probably know him. I haven't seen him much around lately, but
what's the substrate you have in that tank, by the way?
What's that?
Is that Carib Sea or Argonite that's in there?
I actually can't recall where that came from. It's some crush. I remember I got it's it was like 2 parts crushed coral and 1 part crushed shells that I mixed together. Um,
Nice.
yeah, so if anyone here, bring you over here. I was showing Jake these earlier. These are mangrove gambusia that I caught down in Key Largo. That's it's Gambusia rhizophore
Now,
that's endemic to southern Florida.
tell them what was special about this gambusia.
Um, they're, as you can probably see, and these are not even full grown. They're in here, like, see next to my, like, see some of those big females. They're like as big as my finger there, and they're um, so well. First, what's special about it, because this is the first time I ever have intentionally caught gambusia, as
But definitely
Jason.
not the first time you've ever caught gambusia.
Oh yeah, I catch gambusia all the time. It's every time I mutter an expletive and dump them out. But he actually was looking for these, and they're quite large. I mean, some of the biggest females I saw there were like 3 inches long, and they're in pure salt water. I caught these not in the open ocean, but it was like in the mangrove areas of the ocean around Key Largo.
Yeah. All right.
Where I definitely like natural. Now, a lot of my breeding tanks have no bottom or anything, but if I'm going no substrate, but if I'm going to make it look nice, I definitely like the natural scape.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of natural scape as well. Let's see. Julie, you are welcome. She says, thanks you for the details about the clown killifish. Let's see. Trying to see if there's plenty of questions left, but I'm seeing if there's one that won't take quite as long. Here's a good one. Julie wants to know, what are good sources to buy killifish eggs online? Where can I find besides eBay and Aquabid?
Honestly, that's where I got mine the first time. The first ones the very, very first killifish that I bred, which was some Nothobranchius, some annual ones I actually got on eBay. In retrospect, I think I got kind of lucky because a lot of people have had really bad luck on eBay.
Mhm.
Aquabid is a great place as well. You do have to be careful. There are some fine line between scammers or just inept shippers that will not get good results from the eggs. However, if you're really interested on it, I'm going to plug the AKA. You can join the AKA, and
Yes.
they have which is a KA, that's the American Killifish Association, and they have resources to swap fish and eggs. And once if you join the AKA, you could probably just like say, hey, anybody got some of these eggs, and they'll probably just send, if it's not something rare, they'll probably just send you some. Like a lot of the more common and prolific species, like some of the older members will be happy that anyone's keeping them. They'll probably just give you some.
Yes, and while we were talking about the AKA, we'll go ahead and wrap up with this. St. Louis is hosting two, not national conventions, not one, but two. The first of the national conventions is the American Killifish Association, and you can see right here the AKA Convention 2021 that is going down in the St. Louis. If you are going to be in the area, definitely check that out. If you are not, get here and then check it out. And you can go to the aka.org. It is super simple to get there. aka.org. Go ahead and click that AKA annual convention, and it should take you to register for your tickets there. Kurt, thank you so much for stopping by. Guys, if we did not get to your question, please come back next week, same time, same day, Thursday at 7:30. Kurt is going to be giving his webinar about going and collecting live fish, live, not collecting dead fish, going collecting fish all over the place, and you do not want to miss it. It's going to be a great talk, and it's going to be really cool because he's going to give like very, very practical tips on if this is something that you want to do. Basically, by the end of the talk, you'll be able to go ahead and go do it. And I can confirm, Kurt is a wonderful instructor when it comes to collecting live fish. So, Kurt, thank you so much for stopping by. And guys, thank you so much for being here and being in the chat. It really does makes it all worthwhile to see you guys interacting in the chat and asking questions. So thank you all so much, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Thank you very much, Jake. I really appreciate that. It's high praise. So it's really a
Yeah.
pleasure, and thank you very much for asking me to do this. And yeah, I look forward to seeing you all next week.
Yes, absolutely. Good night, guys.
Thanks.